Hey, it's Zane. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you're having a great day. Today I want to talk about how you can ladder up your Bitcoin strategy towards wealth. Bitcoin wealth. And I really believe that Bitcoin is the ultimate asset for us to be paying attention to and to allocating capital to, and to be saving in and rotating our retirement accounts into, all of these kinds of things, if we have a 10 to 15 year time horizon right now, because I really believe that we are at the beginning of a great wealth transfer. We have global adoption coming for Bitcoin. People are starting to realize what Bitcoin actually is, and there's a lot of noise around this, and as time goes on, more and more people are going to wake up and to start coming for this asset. And when you consider that it is a fixed and finite monetary protocol, the only monetary system we've ever had that is completely finite and cannot be messed with, cannot be changed, that is a very powerful proposition. Because when you have a fixed and finite anything that is of value, and you have unlimited demand coming its way, what do you think is going to happen to the price? It is going to be explosive. And so this is what we've seen with Bitcoin historically. Yes, it's had its volatility, its pullbacks throughout various cycles. That is always going to be the case in my view. But when you zoom out and you have the right time horizon and the right perspective and big picture mindset around this, what you notice is that over time, up and to the right forever is essentially what you see with Bitcoin. And the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. Over the last 10 years, Bitcoin has had a CAGR, a compound annual growth rate, around about 80%. Over the last 5 years, 59%. Many are predicting that Bitcoin is going to continue to perform in this fashion over the next 5 to 10 years. We never really know exactly what the future is going to hold, but when you're looking at emerging assets and we understand the problems that Bitcoin is here to solve against the backdrop of a broken, debt-based fiat system that is slowly actually dying, when we understand all of that, you can only come to your own conclusions. But my personal view is that Bitcoin is going to continue to outperform everything else. So with that in mind, I want to share with you some numbers here. Now, this is just some strategic perspective that I have, that I share with my membership community. These are, I guess, yardsticks or mini targets that you can shoot towards that will hopefully give you something that you can work with. And I really believe that in life, the more we're able to set little mini bite-sized achievable targets and goals for ourselves, the more chance we've got of achieving bigger goals. And one of the hardest things in any pursuit is to have a goal that is seemingly way out of reach. And when you've got a mountain to climb and you're standing at the very base of the mountain and you're looking up, it can just seem overwhelming. And so what I always like to do when I'm working with people who are looking for guidance in this area, just to build their clarity and their confidence and to make progress with Bitcoin on their journey, I like to try and just break things down into bite-sized pieces, to take what's complex and what's overwhelming and to just simplify everything. So I want to share a few insights with you here, but the thing to understand is that buying is belief. Hitting the buy button when you're buying an asset like Bitcoin really comes down to your belief around what this is, your goal, why Bitcoin plays an important role in the greater plan that you have for your life, for your retirement, and And the more you're clear on that belief, the easier it is to just execute, take action, and to move towards that goal. And then inside of that, having these little mini targets or steps can really help you to build momentum towards that goal. So this point number one I want to share today is all about targets, starting with a target that is clear in your mind. Now, I started with a stacking target when I first began my Bitcoin journey, and I found it really helpful. Even though that target was a bit of a stretch, it was a little out of reach, I didn't quite know how I was going to get there, it was something I thought about every single day. Now, I had done the work on Bitcoin. I'd spent the best part of 9 to 12 months reading, studying, learning. So I already knew what I was getting myself into, and I understood my time horizon was long. And so for me, price was the least important thing. What I was more concerned about was my Bitcoin stacking target. What does that look like? What could this mean in the future? And how am I going to achieve that? And so having a target is important. You don't have to start with one whole Bitcoin being your target. A lot of people get overwhelmed when they're getting started in Bitcoin because they look at the price and they immediately default to, I've missed it. I'm too late. I coulda, shoulda, woulda 5 years ago. 10 years ago, my best friend told me about it and I didn't pay attention, so, oh well, I'm too late. But that really is a problem if you think that way, because essentially it is a failure of your ego. You didn't pay attention to it back then, and it's understandable not to pay attention to it in the first place. I didn't pay attention to it either when I first heard about it, but you have to pay attention now, because if you dismiss it now, I guarantee you in 5 years' time, you're going to look back and really wish that you did. In every cycle in Bitcoin's life, there have always been people who have always said to themselves, I could have, should have, would have, but I didn't, and now I'm too late. So you just need to make sure that in 5 years' time, you're not sitting in that position, in that mindset, wishing that you had have taken action back in 2025 when you could have, when we were still sitting at less than 5% global adoption, which is really where we are right now. So we are still super early in all of this. It is only now that we have clarity around Bitcoin's future. It is only now, in the last 18 months, that the SEC awarded the ETFs, the exchange traded funds, so that Wall Street could now recommend Bitcoin to their clients. That is a defining moment. Whether you agree with it or not, it's given us clarity around institutional adoption. And what that means is that there are there's big pools of capital, the largest on earth, heading towards Bitcoin. And when you've got a finite asset that cannot be changed, and you've got the largest pools of capital coming for that asset, and you're involved in that asset, what do you think is going to happen to the value of your holdings, of your stack? It is going to go up exponentially. Governments, nation states, and the global population at large, as they realize that they need to be storing their financial energy, their savings, in a monetary network that cannot be printed, that cannot be debased. That is not the situation right now for most people. Most people know that the cost of living is getting harder and harder and harder, more expensive, but they can't quite put their finger on why that is the case. They don't really understand inflation. They don't really understand currency debasement. They don't really understand what's causing all of this. But you do, because you're paying attention to Bitcoin. And so having all of this base level knowledge helps you to build your belief, your clarity. And against that backdrop, you can then set these targets for yourself and lean into that, knowing that you're on the right path. It's such an important mindset shift and perspective to have every single time you go to execute a Bitcoin buy. So you don't have to buy one whole Bitcoin. Don't think about the price. Just think about what your goal is and make it manageable, make it achievable, set a time horizon that is not too far into the future for getting to that first base. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. And that is the first step in your laddering to wealth Bitcoin strategy. Now, I always say that if you have a time horizon of, let's say, 15 years, right? If you've got a time horizon of 15 years, just say you're in your very early 40s as an example, or even mid 40s, and you have a goal to be able to retire in the next 15 years, and you're not quite sure whether you have enough, whether you're on the right track to retire comfortably, whether you're going to be dependent on the pension or the government for survival. If you've got any of these kind of questions in your mind, maybe you're even asking yourself, geez, what chance am I going to have to actually retire comfortably and with dignity and to enjoy my life and to leave a financial legacy for my kids? At the moment, I can't see that that's going to be possible for me. If that's the case, then you really have to be paying attention to Bitcoin, because I believe that Bitcoin is the only monetary asset that gives us that opportunity to really accelerate our way to greater wealth and prosperity in retirement, particularly if you don't think that you're on track for achieving that right now. So if you have a 15-year time horizon, get yourself to 0.1 Bitcoin as quickly as you possibly can. Now, 0.1 Bitcoin is 10% of a Bitcoin, which right now, if you look up a Bitcoin price chart today, as I record this video, is around about 17,000 Australian dollars. 10% of a Bitcoin today is around about 17,000 Australian dollars, which is around about 11 to 12,000 US dollars. Now, if Bitcoin continues on its current price trajectory, its current compound annual growth rate, let's even be more conservative, because its current growth rate is sitting at sort of mid 50s to 60% over the last 5 to 10 years. Let's work with 50%. If it goes at 50% for the next 15 years, that 0.1 Bitcoin is going to be sitting at well over $7 million in 15 years. 7.4 million to be exact, if you put these numbers into a reverse CAGR calculator. There's a link in my show notes if you want to use that tool. 17,000 today at 50% CAGR in 15 years is $7.4 million. What's happening here is that the law of compounding, which Albert Einstein referred to way back when as the eighth wonder of the world, it works for you in accelerated form the longer your time horizon is. So time does the heavy lifting for you. That's the power of compounding. That's how it works. And so this is why with that smaller allocation, you really need that longer time horizon in order for it to really deliver for you in a meaningful way. So 0.1. Now this is why, for me, this is what I recommend to younger people. This is what I've got my kids doing in their 20s, getting themselves to 0.1 as quickly as they can. What do they have that we don't have? They've got time on their side. And so rather than thinking about buying a house and getting caught up in what most young people are thinking about, which is mortgaging themselves to the hilt, doing whatever they can just to scrape together whatever money they can just to buy a house. Now, some of them have given up on that because they just can't see that it's feasible to save a deposit quick enough to get the house they want in the area they want, be close to work, civilization, all of these kinds of things. And so they're basically just forgetting the whole thing. And then that has implications, of course, for the prospect of the family unit, getting married, having kids, having stability in their life, etc., etc., etc. That's a separate conversation. But the thing is that if you have that 15-year plus time horizon, this is a great strategy. 0.1. $17,000. I realize it's not chump change, it's not lunch money, but if you're in your early to mid 40s and you're serious about this, and you're doing the work on Bitcoin, you're educating yourself, and you're really developing your conviction around this, you put your mind to this, you can get there. Doesn't mean you have to get to 0.1 on your first acquisition, on your first buy, but just set that as a goal for yourself over the next 6 to 12 months, whatever is achievable for you, but make sure that it stretches you a little bit so that you've got to do some stuff in order to make this happen. You're talking about acquiring the most scarce monetary instrument humanity has ever seen. This is something that demands your attention. So pay attention to it and lean into this and take it seriously. Now, I would defy anybody who's in their early to mid 40s who's going to take this seriously not to be able to achieve this. Everybody can achieve this. Yes, you may need to go without some things for a little while. Maybe you'll need to borrow a little bit against your mortgage. Maybe you'll need to sell down some stuff that you don't need. There might be some things you'll have to do in order for you to get there. But how important is it to you that you're able to live comfortably with dignity and with a degree of enjoyment and comfort in retirement and to leave a financial legacy? Okay, these are the things you've got to ask yourself. And if those things are important to you, then you'll find a way to do this. So, stepping up the ladder from there, 0.1, I would say that the next target for most people, the sweet spot, like I often refer to for people who are in their late 40s, early 50s and up, I would say that the sweet spot in terms of Bitcoin allocation, if you believe in what this is to get to 0.21. And I know that sounds like a random number, but I'll get to the significance of this in a moment. We know there's 21 million Bitcoin, so of course there's a bit of a relationship here with 0.21. The thing is that 0.21, in my mind, is ideal for people who are in their mid to late 40s and beyond, who have a 10-year time horizon. I would say 12 years max. 10 to 12 years, you want to be in a really good situation. This would be a target I would be shooting for. Now, 0.21 today, as I'm recording this video, is about 37,000 Australian dollars. Not quite sure what it is in USD, but it's probably around about, 22, 23,000 USD, something like that. At 50% compound annual growth rate over the next 10 years, you would be sitting on just over $2 million. Okay, so that 37,000 Australian in 10 years at 50% compound growth, if Bitcoin continues on that trajectory, you're sitting at over $2 million. Here's where it gets really interesting. Even if you chose, now I'm not recommending that you would definitely do this, I'm just painting a picture for you here, a scenario. Even if you got to that $2 million and you chose to sell down $1 million worth of your Bitcoin stack, maybe to pay down some debt, maybe to travel for the next, 5 years or so, maybe to get yourself a camper van, go around Australia, fund your lifestyle, whatever it might be, whatever the goal that is important to you, that you're shooting towards. Take $1 million, you pay some tax, you pay off some debt, enjoy your life for the next 5 years or so. And while you're doing that, you've got $1 million still sitting in Bitcoin, right? Now, let's say that Bitcoin's CAGR drops. I don't think this is going to happen, by the way, but there are some that do. And let's just go with that for the sake of today's exercise. If you've got $1 million in Bitcoin sitting there in 10 years, you're out enjoying life. And if Bitcoin's CAGR drops to 30%, which is what Michael Saylor is predicting over the next 20 plus years, it's going to fall to 29, 30%. That $1 million, while you're out, retired, enjoying the next phase of your life, that $1 million has turned into, wait for it, $13 million in the ensuing 10 years. So you get to 2 million, you take $1 million off the top. Again, it's not a strategy that I would necessarily recommend, but let's just say that you did that, had $1 million left in Bitcoin. In the following 10 years, if Bitcoin CAGR is at 30%, you've got $13 million. Now, I'm not sure about you, but even in an inflationary environment, that is a financial legacy of some kind. So, let me just touch on the 0.21 thing before I forget. There's 21 million Bitcoin. At 0.21, if you were to hold 0.21, you are holding one of only 100 million chunk sizes of 0.21s that will ever exist. So you're in the top 100 million club, so to speak, globally, because there's 8 billion people on Earth. You're in the top 100 million club, so you have one of 100 million chunks of 0.21. And the significance of this is that it puts you in the top 1.25% ownership club of Bitcoin owners globally. Now, this is in an environment where Bitcoin transitions into the ultimate settlement layer, how people are going to transmit and recognize and exchange value globally. And I believe that this is the next phase of Bitcoin. We're going to transition from Bitcoin being funny money, a collectible, just for cypherpunks and computer nerds, being in the very early stages of Bitcoin when nobody was paying attention to it, to a store of value, which is where we are now. The last 5 years has all been about store of value. That's been the narrative around Bitcoin. Digital gold, never sell your Bitcoin, multi-generational wealth, digital Manhattan, as Michael Saylor refers to it. There's only 21 million blocks of the most pristine form of real estate humanity has ever seen, and you have the opportunity to own one block. This has been the narrative. We're going to transition into medium of exchange, which was the original vision of Bitcoin, peer-to-peer electronic cash, peer-to-peer value transfer. You and I can transact freely in this global free market, exchange value on opposite sides of the globe with no permission required, no counterparty, and no friction in between. Medium of exchange, and then unit of account. And this is how money transitions and evolves over time if you go back through history, and this is what's happening with Bitcoin. And so we're going to get to a point where unit of account means that Bitcoin is going to be the globally accepted settlement layer where value is transmitted and exchanged and accepted. And so if this is happening for 8 billion people globally and you have 0.21, you're in a very, very elite group. You've got to play the long game with this. That is generational positioning. So, already getting long in the tooth with this video, so I don't want to keep it rolling, but just simply to say that you can ladder your way to success in Bitcoin. You don't have to start with huge amounts of capital. You don't have to have even thousands and thousands of dollars. If you go to a tool such as the Coin Codex Bitcoin Profit Calculator, and I'll leave a link to this in the show notes as well, you can see the impact of even just a regular DCA, dollar cost average buy. The impact of that in a small amount every single week can be over the next 10 years. As an example, I just went to the calculator before this video. If you put down $1,000 into Bitcoin today just to get started, and then if you were to set up a recurring buy or a DCA, dollar cost average buy, set and forget of $100 per week for the next 10 years, guess what? That $100 per week has turned into $1 million. Okay? So very, very powerful stuff. $100 per week is $5,200 per year. In 10 years, that's $52,000 plus the $1,000 that you put down to open your account to get started. $53,000. If Bitcoin's CAGRing at 50%, it's turned into $1 million. Okay? This is the power of compounding. This is the power of Bitcoin. This is why there's no excuses. This is why there is a strategy for everybody, regardless of where they're at. So get yourself a target, whatever you can move towards, and I would suggest think very seriously about getting yourself to 0.1 if you've got 15 years plus up your sleeve. If you've got less than that, move hell or high water to get yourself to 0.21. Think about rolling over your underperforming industry super account. Set yourself up with a Bitcoin friendly SMSF. I can guide you on where to go to get that done in a completely compliant way. Think about capital, things you don't need that you can rotate into Bitcoin. Look at all of your assets and really ask yourself what the opportunity cost is of having things sitting in funds or in real estate or in superannuation performing at just 8% when you could be in an asset that is doing 7 to 8 times that. And then ask yourself again what the opportunity cost would be if you stay in that position and don't take action on this, what that looks like in 10 years from now. I'm going to leave it there today. Please let me know your thoughts, your comments. If you'd like to take action on this and you need some guidance from me, I do my calls on Zoom so that I can share my screen with you, can talk through some resources. I can get you on the right path based on your goals, where you're at. Look for the link in the show notes. Book a call with me. You'll get tremendous value from it. Other than that, like, share and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. This is Zane signing out. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.